ISO, the part of photography that is one of the most basic technical aspects. It's literally a part of exposure triangle. So you would think that people would know a lot about it. But no, there are still a lot of misconceptions about it, both online and in real world. And the main one is the idea that you need to have your ISO as low as possible at all times. Okay, when we start learning photography, we often see the advice to shoot with as low ISO as possible, because it creates noise and degrades image quality. And it's true, and there is no denying that. But I do believe that the problem is overblown. Like, a lot. Don't believe it? Go to any subreddit about photography and look at questions regarding high ISOs. Some people are confused why they even exist, but that's mostly beginners who are just starting to learn, so that's not a problem. But the problem are more experienced photographers that think that you shouldn't shoot on higher ISOs. And again, it's kind of true, but only if you are shooting on a 2005 Digicam. Any more modern camera or the one that is a bit better will probably handle the noise way better. On modern cameras you can easily shoot up to ISO 12,000 without any real problems, as long as you know what you are doing. So a very important thing to learn is what actually causes noise. And here's a tip, it's not ISO. It's actually lack of light. In a very bit oversimplification, the noise is always there, whenever you shoot at ISO 100 or 10,000. Because what ISO does is basically boosting the signal. It's kind of like volume in audio. If the signal, in this case light, is bad, the increase in volume or ISO will make it much worse. So that's why even the best cameras will struggle in borderline no light. But if you shoot with decent light, the noise won't be as pronounced. Obviously, lower end cameras will get worse results, but it still will be better than a high end camera with no light at all. So with technical parts over, let's talk about the creative consequences that this subject brings. Wow, I worded that weirdly. But anyway, the main problem that it brings is the creation of artificial limits that don't help us grow. You might not take a photo if it's, for example, at ISO 6400 or higher. Like back when I started, I rarely shot anything at over ISO 3200, simply because I was afraid of the noise. So, when we want to decrease ISO, we have to use other parts of the exposure triangle, the aperture and the shutter speed. Both are very important to the technical aspects of photography. However, they can ruin the photo much easier than the ISO. With aperture, it's easy, we just widen it. But it decreases the area that's in focus and makes more blurry backgrounds. So just increase the shutter speed? No, because after a certain point, the image will have a lot of camera shake, and good luck trying to capture anything fast moving. So while both are useful and interesting topics that, depending on when you watch the video, I either made or will make videos about, which if you want to watch, consider subscribing and liking the video, it helps a lot. But going back on track, both can be used, but you have to learn where and when. So, if you want to capture fast movement, have some breathing room for focus, or just don't want backgrounds completely obliterated, you have to increase the ISO, which is not a bad thing. I'd much rather have a noisy photo instead of no photo or a photo that is bad. And also, modern cameras are great when it comes to noise handling. My Nikon Z5 from 2020 doesn't display noise until ISO 3200, and it's a over 5-year-old budget full-frame camera. But for those of you who want to say that it's because it's a full-frame camera, I present this photo. It was shot with Nikon D3500, an APS-C budget DSLR. As you can see, it's written in 3mm crave and it's cropped in. And I shot it at ISO 6400, which for this camera is a rather high ISO to be around. And like, you barely can see the noise. And going away from that for a bit, the HSIF data says that this photo had a 15-second exposure, but I know for a fact that I didn't shot with a tripod on this trip. So how did I? Well, doesn't matter. The point of this was to show that even with a budget APS-C camera, we can still shoot photos with high ISOs, even in such conditions. So where does the idea that you shouldn't use higher ISOs come from? You, hypothetical viewer, asks. Well, at least I believe that it's a combination of two things. Subconsciously forgetting that noise handling got better over the years, and perfectionism. I will start with the first problem. So way back when, noise handling was rather bad. You could make bread out of grain and go deaf from the noise. ISO 800 was very often a limit, so back then you obviously didn't want to increase the ISO. So over time you simply learned not to do that. And those people would later teach photography to other people. And since not increasing ISO was something that they learned, they were teaching that to others. And because there is this goofy thing called subconsciousness, it probably was pretty hard to get this idea out of one's head. It's either this, or the fact that a lot of photographers, even pro ones, still don't understand ISO, or because a lot of stuff is dumbed down for people who are new to the hobby. I personally believe that it's a combination of all three. And when it comes to perfectionism, it's rather simple. If you want a perfect photo, you don't want noise on it. And the worst thing that you can do is increase exposure in post instead of increasing ISO when shooting. Photos will come out as much or even more noisy and will lose a lot more detail. Another tip will be don't use auto or semi-manual modes. The camera doesn't know that something is supposed to be dark, so it will try to expose it as if it was day. You can shoot semi-manual mode if you use point metering or however it's called, but on matrix metering, avoid these modes at all costs. But even despite all of that, you will most likely usually shot at between 3200 and 6400 ISO. Why? Because even in dark, you will usually try to photograph things with light in them, and you will rarely shoot at ISO 12000 for example. So if you are worried about noise, don't be, and simply go out shooting, whether you use high or low ISO.